Gary, this was always going to be a challenging season, but are the fans getting enough from the team to believe in this club in the way that you'd hoped?
No, I think I said it after the game. Look, it's been a disappointing week for us for sure, and none of us are happy about that. And I can promise no one's more unhappy when we lose a game than myself, because I know how hard we prepared for that game and I know how hard the players have worked for that game. But we get the chance to put it right. You know, that's what we're focused on now, is to put it right. The last two games especially, we know that they've been below par, and as a performance and obviously results. And what we have to do is dust ourselves down and realise what we've done wrong in these two games especially, and put it right on Saturday. That's what we've been discussed after the game and since that point, to make sure that we're in the best possible and give ourselves the best possible chance on Saturday. And that's what we're aiming for. That's what we have to do. So, like I said to you, it's been a disappointing week so far, but we get a chance to put it right on the weekend and finish it on a higher note, and with a win and with 3 points. That's what we're aiming for. So that's where the focus has been since the changing room after the Rotherham game.
On the point of it being a disappointing week and a tough couple of games, could it not be argued that it's 2 wins from 8 since the restart, 4 wins in 17, the results since Christmas haven't been good overall? Isn't it fair to say the concerns voiced by some fans are about more than just a couple of games?
I think what I've said there, I think my overall record, I'm not happy with it. Of course I'm not. I think I want it to be a lot better than what it's been. I think, like I said to you, I think you judge me on my overall record. I don't think you can judge this team on the season before. I know that talk will be there. I know you guys want to talk about that, but I don't think it's fair to judge this team. You're talking about 2 wins and 8, but I think you've all seen up to the Birmingham game how well the team have performed. So I'm not going to go away from that. I have to put perspective on it. Perspective is all the way up to the Birmingham game. It's perceived as a really good start. Performances were very good. And this week where we haven't performed well, we're very unhappy about it. And of course, the last 2 games, especially the last game, you know, a local derby, we apologise for that. You know, we don't want that to happen. Like I said, there's no one more unhappy than myself whenever we lose a game, because I know how hard the players and how hard we prepare for those games. But perspective means that we get a chance to put it right at the weekend. That's what we have to be determined to do. That's what I feel from the changing room onwards to here, and that determination to put it right at the weekend. If we can put it right at the weekend and finish these last 3 games off in a positive way with good points, then again, we'll go back to that feeling of it's been a good start. So this is the life of football. This is the life of the Championship. Our job is to stay balanced, as not to get too high and too low whenever you win or you lose. I think what we do know is we have performed well up to that stage of the Birmingham game. Everyone was talking well about us. And then for the sake of a couple of games, Brentford game was a difficult game, but a competitive game. But these last 2 games, of course, haven't been good enough. But it changes like the wind. I know that from experience, and I think as players, you know that as well. We have to do is stay balanced and focused, and we get a chance to put it right at the weekend. We get a chance to put a bit of pride back into our club and into the fans. That's what we're aiming for, and that's what we need to do at the weekend.
It's understandable why any manager would want to stick with a formation and a style that you've worked and spent a lot of time on. But with a growing absentee list and with these 3 results, is it time to consider a different approach?
I think, look, it's been difficult in certain positions, of course, defensively. You know, again, perspective. I always look with perspective. I don't go with emotion. I look at perspective and logic. So in terms of the disruption we've faced in these last 3 games, with players having to come off the pitch injured, players that have been sent off, having to deal with those disruptions. Of course, we needed to deal with it better. But that, I defy any team to have those sort of disruptions in a game, or before a game, or especially during a game, in any team, and not it cause problems or disrupt the flow of what's needed. So, again, perspective is all the way up to the Birmingham. We had more or less a settled defensive line, and we were producing clean sheets and producing points. Since that disruption, we haven't been able to produce points. It's not an excuse, but it does play a part in it. So perspective, from my point of view, is needed. But of course, when you have that disruption, trying to select the areas. Sometimes it's a bit of, in these last 3 games, it's been a bit of needs must, and players that probably isn't their strongest position have had to fill in certain positions. That's what we've had to do. So in terms of formations and tactics and stuff like that, it's again, you stay balanced. This is not Championship Manager. This is real football. You have to give the players a clear idea what you've worked on all through pre-season, what you've designed it to be, and what they're comfortable and they know. You don't just change something because it's off a feeling or off a whim. You need to put the players on the pitch with clarity of their role. So we played with it. We changed at Birmingham. We played with a back 4 at Birmingham. And then we've played with the 3 at the back in every other game. So it'd be a case of what we look at and what we need to do for this game.
Just a couple more from me. Is there any positive news on the injury front? Have you got anything good news there? And I appreciate you definitely don't want to single individuals out, but how strongly are you considering a change in goal?
We've got Izzy Brown's been back in training all week. And Dom Iorfa has been back in training all week. So we have a good look at them today and hopeful that they'll be in contention for the game at the weekend. And Aidan is hamstring. We don't know how serious or how bad that hamstring is just yet. We'll know over the next few days, but he'll be out for the weekend in terms of the ones that are from that game. Massimo's, like I said, still out. And then the other suspensions that we have. So that's where we'll be at as a squad.
And in terms of in goal, any thoughts on, how strongly are you considering a change there without wanting a single players out?
How can you ask me not to single a player out, but you ask me a question to single a player out? So no, not at all. Look, I have to make decisions. I'll make whatever decisions I feel is right for the team come the weekend. And
finally, there is a degree of fan unrest at the moment. For those who doubt that you are the man to turn this situation around, what would you like to say to them?
Look, I've said it all along. I want to try and put in place a team that they can be proud of. We were doing that up to the Birmingham game. We've had a bad week, for sure. We've had a bad week, but perspective and experience tells me that if we can get through and get the right result at the weekend and get back on track, we can start to do that. I said to you at the very start, my overall record, I'm not happy with at all. There's no one more unhappy with that side of it than myself. Ultimately, even though there's a lot of things that have gone into that run that have been a little bit out of my control, it's my responsibility. So my overall record is my responsibility, and that's what I'm, of course, not happy with. But like I said to you, the team deserve to be judged on this season. They don't deserve to be judged on before. So that's what I would say to our fans. So I understand that side of it, and there's no one that wants it to work more than me. There's no one that's more unhappy when we lose than me. There's no more unhappy when we win than me. Do you know what I mean? But it's something that, of course, is always there. It's part of management. It's part of your life. You understand it, and you have to get on with it. I'm not going to dwell or fear anything. I never have. My job is and my mentality is to move forward and try and strive for better, no matter what the situation is. So that's what I'll always try and do, and that's what I'm doing right at this moment.
Thanks, Garry.
Morning, Garry. You've spoken a lot about leading a cultural change at Sheffield Wednesday. How disappointing then is it then, if you take the view that it was good up to Birmingham then, that they're still very fragile?
No, of course it needs more work. Of course it's a process that you have to go through. It doesn't just change overnight. I do believe that the squad has made strides in that way. But like any team in this league, you can have bad weeks. You can have them. Every team will have them this year. But of course, you don't want them to happen. And when they do happen, like they've happened to us this week, you have to be disappointed with that, which we are. And I'm unhappy about it. But like I said, there's no one more unhappy than myself and the players about it. But we get the chance to put it right. And that's where the determination needs to be and the focus needs to be. So we have that chance at the weekend. We know it's going to be difficult. We know it's going to be tough. But we have to find that within ourselves and go onto that pitch to try and win that game and get the points that we need and put ourselves back on track. So that's the life of a footballer. That's the life of a football team. But in terms of culture, of course, it needs more work. But we have made steps forward with it. It needs more work. That's a process. But we continue in that way, and we take the rough and the smooth and try and stay balanced and focused on what we need to do moving forward.
I just wonder how it can be justified that last season's results can't be taken into the equation, because a lot of the players, all right, you've got some new signings in, of course, but a lot of the players are still the same, aren't they?
Yeah, but I'm talking about myself. It's my, judge me on that. And like I said to you, my record is I'm not happy with that. I've never had a record like that. I'm not used to having that type of record. I'd love for it to be better. I want it to be better. I deserve that responsibility. What I'm saying to you is this team deserves to be judged on this season. Last season is last season. Yes, it's new personnel and everything like that, but that matters. That counts. So this team deserves to be judged on this season. Up to the Birmingham game, all of you and everyone else was saying it's a good start. And the feeling was it's a good start. And it's a positive start. For the sake of a week, now it's a disaster. Well, I don't think like that. I stay balanced, put perspective on it, and try and encourage these players to come fighting back. And that's what we're looking to do on the weekend.
How far off then are you from getting this team to the point where the fans have something to be proud of? Because as Rob's alluded to, clearly a large section of them are not right now.
It's a long season. It's a hard season. We're in a real difficult situation as a club. And it's the team and us that are the ones that have to do something about it under very difficult circumstances. So we're going to have to fight and stick together. We're going to have to look after each other. And we're going to have to take the criticism when we take the criticism and enjoy the highs when you have the highs. But we have to stick and fight together for the sake of this club and everyone that works here and the fan base that support it. So never lose sight of that. I don't ever lose sight of that. And I know that's ultimately what we're working for and why I work here. So it's part of the journey. It's part of it. Like I said to you, I'm sure everyone was proud up to the Birmingham game. I'm sure everyone was happy with the way it was going and the progress that was being made and the performances that were being made. For the sake of a week, which we are hugely disappointed about, of course, it doesn't change that thought process. Yes, it dents it and it creates that disappointment and unhappiness about it. But you got a chance to put it right, and we got a chance to put it right this weekend, and that's what we're determined. That's what we're working towards. That's what we're trying to prepare as hard as forwards to make sure that we go out there on Saturday. And this is how football works. You can have a difficult week. I'll let you guys put a different perspective on it to me, which is your prerogative. But I know that if we get these 3 games right and we do well, it's back to the positive. And that's just the way that the life of football and a football team works.
Does it become then, given the issues that you're alluding to there, the administration of the football club being the principal one, that this season becomes the impossible job because, having promotion form just to stay up or there or thereabouts, given the numbers, it becomes impossible?
Nothing's impossible. I don't know why anyone would think like that. Nothing's impossible. We know what's possible. We know what we're capable of. We were shown what we were capable of up to the Birmingham game. Like I said, perspective. We've had a bad week. We're hugely disappointed with it. But we know we can win games and we know we can perform. So that's what we're looking to do. Take it game by game, not look too far ahead. We know every game the demand for points is there because of our situation. But of course we believe we can do it. And for the sake of a bad week isn't going to deter that or change that fact for ourselves. So we're preparing and ready for this game at the weekend. And what we're looking to do is put a determined performance on that shows our quality, shows our capability, and puts us back on track to what we were doing. So that's all we're focused on.
Best of luck, Tal.
Morning, Gary.
Morning.
I just want to ask on Izzy, when Izzy first picked up that knock, I think Bristol City it was, you said after the game it was just a little bit of a kick. What is the process in terms of, it's been a month now, I think, since he's played. How do you judge that in terms of when he is actually ready, when you think it's quite an innocuous one at first?
Yeah, and then obviously you keep assessing it afterwards in terms of like this, where he had the knock and around the knee and where the swelling was in the positions that they're in. Sometimes that fluid that's there and that swelling takes time to go down, and obviously you try and push that little bit to get back into training, and then that swelling goes up again. So that's what he tried to do. And then we had to take a period. Okay, that's not working. We need to take a period where he's off the training field, and we can allow that swelling to go down because it flares back up when he tries to those few days later to try and push on, and then assess it from there. So he's been back on the grass for a good 10 days now, and with each day the swelling hasn't come back up. So okay, that's good. He's making progress, and then you just judge it on where he's at fitness wise and how he's feeling. So he's been back all week. We've had no problems with it flaring back up or anything like that, and then yeah, he's had a good week. So I'm very hopeful that he'll be in contention for the weekend.
And how big a boost would he be to come back into the squad, given
of course.
the ability he's got?
Yeah, like I said, on the start of the season up to the Birmingham game, more or less, we had quite a settled sort of spine of the team, in terms of Tom Lees and Massimo, and then obviously Izzy up to that Bristol game, and we had quite a settled spine of the team, and obviously that's been disrupted, and we've had players that have been injured and sent off, and during games as well, which is, I defy any team for that not to cause certain disruptions, but we haven't dealt with those disruptions well enough in this past week. And we have to do better at that when that happens. But we're hopeful it doesn't happen too much. Like I said to you this week, I think if anything could have gone wrong, it went wrong with things like that, and obviously the performance level. So, but we're just trying to get players back as much as we can, and important players for us. Like I said, it showed when they were playing and performing, they were contributing to a really good level of performance. So, of course, it's important to get those type of players back on the pitch. But obviously, it takes time. It's not we like them right now, but they're not always. It doesn't always work out when you're injured.
Rob asked about Cameron Dawson earlier. With goalkeepers, especially, how important is trying to sort of protect them when confidence does look to be dipping a little bit?
Yeah, of course, and you have to try and understand that as a manager, and understand that what you need to do is in terms of decisions. Like I said, you look at all the way up to Birmingham. We had clean sheets, we had good performances, defensively very solid, and then this week we've not had that. As I said, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but we can't use them as an excuse. At the end of the day, they haven't been performances that have been good enough to win games, and they've been below par to what we've been doing and expected. So we're unhappy with that. So yeah, of course, in terms of decisions for the team and players, and where I think that's part of my job. And as I said, moving forward, always is to try and make the right decision. But I'll always try and do that, try and make the right decision for the team. It's not what's best for me or what's best for the players. It's what's best for the team, and that's the way I always try and view team selections and how I speak and judge players.
You spoke about the sort of the fragility of the team last year, and you obviously mentioned it after the Rotherham game. Is it a worry for you? I know it's only 2 games, like you said, but is it a worry for you that sort of aspects of that fragility are still there, or is that something you actually expected given the short time that we've had so far?
Yeah, I think what I do understand from experience is you can't go for a whole season without having a bad week or some bad games. It's part of it. But of course, with us and our situation, it's magnified a lot more, and I understand that. And like I said, especially when you do have a bad period, if the performances, you can have the bad results. But if the two, especially the 2 performances were well below what we expected and what we should have been delivering, of course, it gets magnified even more because of the situation we're in, because of the record that I've had in terms of since I've been here. It gets magnified that much more. But I forget all the negative. I don't care about the negative. I understand it and I respect it, and I try and learn from it. But it's about moving forward. It's about the determination to put things right, and that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I've been doing since I've been at the club. I do believe that we have made steps forward, and we've had a difficult week that's taken us backwards in terms of the perception of it. So we need to fight back. We need to fight back, and that's what we've been doing since we left the changing room against Rotherham, knowing that we have an opportunity to do that at the weekend.
And then are you sort of? We saw things sort of snowball last season when results weren't going the way of the team. Is that a worry for you now in terms of these 2 results? Are you pretty confident that this group of players have got it in them to sort of push through these couple of games?
Yeah, I'm confident with them, and I feel that they can, and I know that they can do it, and that belief needs to be there. Again, I try and when I speak with the team afterwards, and we try and assess the games, I put perspective with it. We played Brentford. We'd lost that game, but it was a competitive game. We weren't as competitive as we wanted to be in that first half, but we were still well in the game. In the second half, we were much more competitive, and possibly could have had we had a disallowed goal that wasn't a foul. Those things could have gone for us. And then in the 2 games we've had a lot of disruption with players coming off, and players being sent off, and a lot of disruption in those games. They're not excuses. We need to deal with those situations better. Of course we do. And overall, the performance are below par. But I think there's been a lot of root causes that have not helped that fact for us. But dealing with them better is something that we spoke about. And you go through that with the players, knowing that if we get those bits right and we get back on track and we can avoid those disruptions, we have a better chance of performing, have a better chance of winning games and getting back to the level of performance that we expect from ourselves. And that's what we were doing up to the Birmingham game. So that's what you remind players of, and that's what you show them. And then that's what you aim to do in the next game that you have.
Perfect. And just one last one from me. There's been sort of some fans who have questioned the fight of this team now, given the last two games. I'm not going to ask you to say sort of what was said in the change room after that Rotherham game, but could you give us just a little bit of a feeling about what the mood was like? You feel a genuine level of hurt there from them after a result like that?
Yeah, look, I think, of course, you whenever you lose games, there is no one unhappier than me as a manager and as players. I can promise you that. No player ever goes out onto the pitch wanting to lose a game. There's a reason why they've got to this level, because they've had a winning mentality inside them. That's why, as a kid, you get ahead of all those other millions of other kids that try and become professional footballers, because you have a determination to win and you know how to win. That's how you get to the levels that you can as a professional. That's the difference. You have a more consistent winning mentality. That's how you become a professional over the other millions of kids, and you have that determination to see it through. So it's in them. It's always in them. But it's, of course, remembering it and understanding it. And when you have difficult moments, is reminding yourself of how you get to that level and how you need to get back to that winning trail to get to that feeling. And that's what I remind players of, using my experience of having been a professional footballer, and understanding it, and remind them of that. And that's what we know we're capable of. And they know that they're more than capable of fighting and showing it. And I don't think it's really been a case of fight and commitment. I think it's just been mistakes and maybe, that lack of belief in those moments when something's gone against, but that's part of that cultural thing, which I do think they've made steps forward, and the proof will always be in what's ahead. Can you react? Can you put a stop to it? Is this going to keep going? That's the questions that you have to answer, especially when you step onto that football pitch. So those questions are there to be answered. They're there to be answered this weekend. They're there to be answered in these next two games. They're there to be answered in every game that we play for the rest of the season. Have you got the determination and strength of character to fight through it? And that's what we've been pushing. That's what we've made players really aware of since the first day, and understanding that the only way we can do that is if we stick together and we fight. So it's all our responsibility, me as a manager, my staff and the players. And that's what I expect to see, come the weekend and for every game that we try and play this season.
Perfect. Thanks, Garry. See you tomorrow.
Cheers.
Morning, Garry. How are you doing?
Morning.
Just a quick couple from me. Obviously, when you're playing against Wycombe, there's one name that sort of I suppose us guys are obsessed about, is an ex-teammate of yours. Tell us a little bit about Adebayo Akinfenwa.
Big B, as we used to call him. He's just a fantastic person. I'm good friends with Bayo. We've known each other for a long time, and whenever we get back in contact and stuff, he's larger than life character, and he's had an exceptional career, and he's an exceptional person. So it'd be good to see him at the weekend, but only afterwards. But he's obviously had a career where he's had to fight for it. He's been through a lot of experience, and he's making a life for himself as well for afterwards. You can see with his personality and his media sort of avenue that he's going down, and delighted for him. He's a fantastic guy, and he deserves success in whatever he does.
Just to sort of bring it back to
and he's a monster.
Yeah, he's a big lad. I want to talk to you a little bit about the attacking output at Wednesday. Obviously, no goals in the last couple, and not sort of up there in the scoring charts. What are your thoughts? A lot of talk about the mistakes that maybe have cost at the other end. What's your sort of summary on how things are going in terms of getting on the score sheet? Yeah,
again, look, of course we need more. We need more goals. And again, not to keep going back to the point, but I think up to the Birmingham game, we were creating more than enough chances to score more goals. You look at the Birmingham game, we should have been 2, 3, 4 up. We should have scored 2 or 3 goals. We had good chances in those games. You go back to the other games, Bristol in the first half, Watford in the first half. We should have been scoring more goals. So that's, of course, that last bit of the puzzle in terms of being clinical in those moments. So we know that we can create chances and score goals. Being clinical, we have to be more ruthless. We work every day on it. But as long as you're winning games and taking points, you can, the feeling towards that is different. But of course, then when you go through a week like we've been through, and especially the last 2 games where you're not creating enough chances, you haven't scored enough goals, and you've had problems at the other end, and the emphasis to get back to that and create chances and score goals is always going to be there. So that output needs to be more. We know that, and that's what we work every day on to try and improve that and for each and every game.
How do you go? We've spoken a little bit this season about making the right decision at the right time. How do you guys go about sort of affecting change on that from a coaching perspective?
I think the way, as a manager and as a coach, is what you try and do is always show the players their role, what's expected from that role on the football pitch, defensively and offensively. You try and guide them and show them as much as you can what their role is and what that entails, and how that's delivered at a high level, what each personnel can bring to that. And then that's what you try and do. And then when the players go onto that pitch, it's to try and focus on that and bring that energy and spirit and fight and quality onto the football pitch. And when they do that, like they've shown, we can produce good performances. When we don't do that at the right level, like we haven't done this week, especially in the last 2 games, we don't produce that level of performance. And inevitably in this league, and with the margins, they've gone against us, and they've been below par performances. So, but that's the roller coaster you're on. We don't want to have, like I said to you, you don't want to have big dips. We've had a bigger dip than we would have liked in these last 2 games in terms of performance. We have to fight back to get back to that level and try and then, like we were doing, keep that level of consistency in the performance. And that's the fight that you continuously have. And that's the fight as players mentally you have to fight for that consistency and that level of performance. So that's how we try and train it and work it. And that's why I said that's why we work so hard, and the players work so hard on that preparation and go onto that pitch to give themselves the best chance of performing.
How much conversation do you have with, perhaps the chairman and those sort of above you at the club?
Look, there's always constant dialogue and talk, and that's just part of the relationship and part of football. So, as I said, we're in a period where we haven't got time to breathe. There's games every 2-3 days. The focus is on preparation. But in terms of communication with the team, with the players, with the club itself, that's always ongoing and a daily thing. So, that's just normal.
When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Chansiri and sort of managed to have a conversation about the direction that the team's going in this season?
Yeah, I've had a constant dialogue with him throughout pre-season and throughout the start of this season. So, as I said, that's a constant thing, and that's just normal. That's a normal process to go through. So that's as I said, a consistent thing with himself and the club and everyone at the club.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Gary. Good luck tomorrow.
Gary, what's the chairman's message been to you when you have spoken to him? Have you spoken to him this week?
Yeah, we've had I've exchanged conversations and stuff. Just obviously before games, he wishes good luck and gives his view, and afterwards, text or speak in terms of what might feel for this week. Or it's not just about the games; it's about everything. There's a lot of things that go on at a football club that you need to be aware of, and communications are on a number of things. So he's always done that before and after games and during weeks, and as you speak to not just himself but other people at the clubs continuously throughout every single day. So that's just a normal thing, nothing any different to any other club that I've been at.
Is the understanding of that you've brought in 9 new players and that it will take time to gel everything together?
Yeah, look, I think these are questions not for me, they're for the club. My understanding is, yes, of course, of that, and that communication has been there from not only this season but from before, like I've spoke about before. So there are more questions that you put towards the club. I can't speak for someone else, but in terms of my communication and my understanding, of course, we all understand it. It takes time to build a team. It takes time to build that culture and all those things. But I also know that you don't have the luxury of time as a manager. You need to deliver results, and in the situation where you need to deliver results, that's just football. That's management. So you don't need talk or communication to know that. That's from experience and understanding what this job is.
How confident are you that this group of players, after having this little dip in form, can bounce back and deal with the situation that you're in because of the points deduction?
Of course they can fight back. Truly believe that they can fight back, and I believe that they will fight back. I believe there's enough spirit and steps that have been made forward with that for them to react. And of course, then words are cheap and actions speak for themselves. So that's what we're going to see in these next 3 games. And I'm determined as much as the players to start putting that right with this game on Saturday. And that's what we're determined to do. We know how difficult it is. We know how difficult a game it's going to be. But I think we know that what we're capable of and what we need to do to try and win this game and put ourselves back on track. And that's the beauty of football as well. You get the opportunity in these type of periods to react very quick. And it's been a very disappointing week. But we get the opportunity to put ourselves back in the right frame of mind, and the right type of performance and determination is going to be needed for that. But of course, I'm confident that they can do that.
The gap between yourselves and 21st place has gone back up to 9 points. How important is it to stay in touch with those teams above you?
That's going to be
they don't get far away from you.
It's going to be there all season. Every game's going to be the need for points all the way up to the very, very end. Of course, we'd like to get out of that negative as quickly as we can. But it's each game at a time. Each game is 3 points to fight for. As many 3 points and points that we can get is going to help our cause, and of course, closing that gap is important. And then coming out of it, being within touch and knowing that it's within distance. That's what we've aimed to do from the very start. And for the sake of a bad week, doesn't change that approach. What we know, but of course, we know we need to add points to it in these 3 games to close that gap and hopefully put ourselves out of that negative and start putting ourselves into the positive.
Jack Marriott started the last 3 matches. What are your thoughts on how Jack's done?
Well, I think it's been difficult for him because of the performance that we haven't delivered. I think for anyone in the team, anyone coming into the team, I think you can really judge Jack on these 2 games because it's been a difficult couple of games that he's come into and not really been allowed to show what we know he can do and what the team can do. So we're looking for a much better performance at the weekend that can allow the players to show much more, and the likes of Jack that have just come into the team to show what they can do. So that's how I view these last 2 games.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Garry, you've managed big clubs before. From the perspective of someone who's inside the club, how much more extreme is the roller coaster in terms of the outside noise, the highs and the lows?
It always will be that. I think the noise is always there at any club, but of course the bigger the club, the bigger the noise. It's just what it is. But it doesn't change, like I said, my perspective and view on things. No matter how big that is or how small that is. Use my experience and know what I want to do. Like I said, there's no one more determined than me. There's no one that's unhappier than me when we don't perform or we don't win games. But always have that fire in you to try and put it right. And the players, and I do believe that they've got that in them, and we'll see that performance at the weekend. I'm confident of that. But of course, we have to deliver that with action. So the preparation we're doing is as hard as we ever do, and knowing that we're only 1 game away from putting ourselves back on track. So in terms of big clubs and small clubs, this is of course a big club with a big, passionate, loyal fan base, and the noises will always be bigger and smaller, throughout that. So, but keep my eye and focused on what we need to do and understand how that you get that noise to go in the right direction.
I understand you've plenty of experience of it now. It's not new to you, but when it is first new to you, does it take a bit of sort of getting used to that sort of knee-jerk element of it?
I think that's just management. I said to you, I think it takes getting used to just as management as a whole. When I first started at Swansea, inexperienced, had no idea of management, had conversations with managers and but until you're doing it, you have no idea. And I think, of course, you had that first experience of it, at Swansea, probably the best example I'll ever have, where we broke our record. We had the best Premier League season we'd ever had. We'd done excellent, the highest position we had ever finished, and then started the next season off well. And then within 5 games, noise was there. And I never understood it. It was the first understanding of it, thinking, well, the last 16 months or whatever it's been, you've done all those things. And then within a 5-game period, you hear all that noise. And it's the first time I'd ever experienced it. But what I did do was okay. And I had lucky enough to have good experienced managers who I knew, who spoke to me about that type of situation and made you try and understand that this is part of it. So from that point onwards, I understood what management is and what football is and what the industry is and what happens with management. And I think that experience, even though you don't want it to happen, is valuable. I think that set me up to understand what football really is, what football management really is. And since that point, the type of character, I think it depends what type of character you are as well, whether those things really affect you in terms of your daily work and stuff like that, or you have that character to be determined and push through it. So my experience in football has always been that. I think I've always had adversity and had to fight for things. I guess that characteristic's always there inside me. So it's no different going into management, even though it's a different situation to what you are as a player, where you're much more protected.
I just wonder with the dressing room. Obviously, you've got plenty of players in there who are well used to playing for Sheffield Wednesday and for big clubs, and you've got others for whom this will be a new experience. Do you sort of do you try and insulate them in any way, the inexperienced lads? Do you sort of leave them to learn it for themselves? How do you sort of go about that?
I think you have to do a bit of both. You can't just wrap them up in cotton wool. I think that's been a problem. Coming into football for far too long, you can't just wrap them up in cotton wool, but you also have to protect, you also have to look after them, you also have to guide them, you have to encourage them, and you have to then be hard on them. And that's the same in life. I think in life you need that. If you're mollycoddled for your life, then when you go into that big world, you're going to be in for a shock. So I think with all players, and especially young ones, I think you have to get the balance right, where they see the harsh reality, they have to problem solve themselves, and then also, or encourage them to problem solve themselves, but then also guide them in the right way as well. So I think it's a bit of both. I think that's what you try and strike the balance on, and try and do the right thing in that sense, in terms of how you go about that.
And in terms of striking the balance, I mean, is it ever difficult? Because from a selfish point of view, for example, it might have been in your best interest to chuck Dom and Izzy into the team, earlier than they're ready. Did you ever have to sort of fight against that, to sort of look long term and resist, what's best for your short-term interests?
Yeah, of course. And that's probably been a decision in these last 3 games where, we've had the injuries and the disruption that we've had, and having those players who are not quite there, but possibly could, but you risk re-injury for the longer term. I've said it a lot. I try and make the best decisions for the club and for the team, and not for myself, and not for the individual players. Try and do right by them. I've always done that. I try and do that, and even at the forsaking sometimes what's could be perceived as best for me. It's just not how I am. I try and do what's best for the team and for those players and for everyone around me. So there's nothing worse than selfishness. I don't like selfishness. I like to be. I've always been unselfish and try and give to everyone else around me. So it's difficult. Like I said, in the disruption we've had this week, it could have easily been tempting to put those back in earlier, and still relatively early for a few of them anyway. But you would have run the risk of then losing them longer, but they might have helped you in that one game. But of course, that's the fight. But I've always tried to be, like I said, I make the right decision for the club and for the team. That's what I try and do. It's not about what's right for me. It's not what's right about for the players. What's right for the team and the club. That's what I've always tried to do, and I'll always do that.
And just finally, for me, I mean, on a personal level, how do you try and maintain that level? Because you can ignore reading the papers and social media, but you still have to speak to us idiots three or four times a week. It's constant, isn't it? It's constantly in your face.
You're being harsh on yourself. You're not idiots.
Well, I'm speaking for
no, it's your prerogative. It's like, you have to do what you have to do, and the view is the view. You know, you can't change any of that. But I think it's just more, like I said, I've had that my whole life. I've had to fight for everything I've ever had. I had to do it as a player. So when that's in you, you know, along that journey and along that way, you've been used to criticism. You've been used to people saying you can't do this or you're not able to do that, and they don't believe that you can do that, and that side of it. And then in terms of social media, it's just a world of abuse. So it's a horrendous place, social media. So that's why I don't pay attention to it. It's not the real world. What's real is my experience and knowing what I know, and stick true to that, and knowing that that's it's helped me be as successful as I could be along my life, you know, and maximize what I've been as a person, you know, on my journey. And then into management now it's the same attitude, and want to be as determined and as successful as I possibly can be. And I'm determined for that, no matter what anyone says. So it's just my mentality, and I try and impart that on the players, try and give my experience, and who I can see that are on certain stages of their journey that I've been on, and try and guide them and give them that encouragement to know that they can fight through things and they can get to this certain place if they, you know, more belief and more attitude and more determination, more mentality, and you try and guide them in that. And that's what we've been working on, and that's what I feel that they have made steps forward. And then here comes a really difficult week, a really disappointing week, an unhappy week. This is going to happen. Now, what are you going to do about it? Can you come fighting back? Can you show that? Do you know what I mean? What we've been talking about and working on, and you as an individual and you as a team. And that's how I always speak with them, and how I always try and guide them and direct them to. And then it's, can you go across that white line now and deliver it, you know, with all that negativity, all that pressure and all that side of it. And that's what I've always tried to do and always tried to work. And that's my language that I speak with players. So, yeah, that's what I want to see on the weekend. And then we'll see what happens in these 3 games.